Many of our podcast episodes start with Ron, AJ, and I simply having a conversation. It's our time to catch up with each other and talk about the world, which includes a lot of things we choose not to share with you. This episode started the same way, with me sharing with the guys how I had a moment of uncertainty, like many of us do, about my next steps and talking about my tribe that is always there to hype me up and remind me who I am and what I'm capable of. And so we're sharing with you our conversation in 3 parts. In the first, we'll talk about embarrassment, vulnerability, honesty, and the importance of your hype person or persons. Part 2 includes a look at success, self-awareness, and individuality. In part 3, we share some resources that we're using to help us navigate, manage, and support our mental health, and we know you will benefit from these too. Enjoy.
The longer people are looking for jobs and looking at different things, the more you do self-doubt. You can't help it creep in. And I think you have to do exactly what you just talked about, is pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and saying, yes, you can. Yes, I am qualified, able. No reason I can't do that, except for just purely being the right one pick to look at. That's the hard part, is getting to that point.
It's interesting because I don't really belittle myself, but what it was thinking, oh, I've never worked with a company on something at this large scale. This is a big thing. Have a hype person, have someone in your corner who will always be your hype person and to remind you of who you are. They're ready to say, okay, no, you got this.
I like your comment about having your hype person, and sometimes that hype person, those are the people that you've hyped. You could go back to those people that you're helping. I mean, I see that with my girls a lot. I mean, I try to teach these lessons and get these messages across, and then often I look back and say, am I following the same message that I'm preaching and teaching to them? And often it's when I revisit with them whatever I'm thinking about or going through, it's funny to see them turn that back and be that high person. You can do it. You know, be that encourager that you've been for them. And a lot of times those can be the best judge of that for you, because they've seen it firsthand, and you putting them in a better space or making them look at something differently, the student becoming the teacher. So
I love talking about hype people because we live in so much isolation. We can have friends, but sometimes we don't let our friends know what we're going through. I'll say, for people who have been laid off, they know you're laid off, but they may think that when you get together, all is well and you can talk a good game, but we aren't always truthful with our people to let them know where we are. They don't even know to hype us up because they feel like, oh, you're good. Again, Mental Health Awareness Month, which we always need to recognize. We have to, just being truthful with our people can help with our mental health. I've seen that through some major challenges in my life. One of those being going through my separation and divorce many years ago. Only a handful, probably less than a handful of people knew. And probably because of that, I was depressed. Those that were close to me, they probably didn't see it because I'm good at that. So yeah, you have to be truthful with your people so they can help you. That's what you have people for.
It's also the best time for you to realize like who's actually in your corner during times like that.
Yeah, when you're honest about what's going on.
That's the key.
Definitely.
I think part of that ties in with yours, Nicole, is a lot of us hide it and want to make it look like things are still, I'm doing well. And people are assuming that if that's what you're portraying, either you are good or you don't want to talk about it, right? You don't want to bring it up. So I think by doing that, it keeps a lot of people from talking about it, whether it be, like I said, either they assume you don't want to talk about it or that, hey, everything's good, you got stuff going on. It's up to the individual to bring that wall down and be a little more vulnerable. And then people will help. People are happy to help. Some people are waiting to help. But a lot of times people don't want to say it and potentially bring up something.
Why do you think that is, though? I mean, I know I've done it.
I think it's
I did
human.
it when I think I did it even with his layoff for the longest time. I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Until shit started breaking. And I was like, okay, I'm not fine.
If you went through it, you're the best person to answer that question as to why you did it.
I mean, I
Pride.
know what it is for me. It's like
Pride?
the pride, the embarrassment kind of thing. I'm the type of person that, like, if there's not a solution to a problem or there's no way to actually understand what the problem is, apart from like knowing it's something completely out of your control, how do you go about fixing it? And then the other thing is I don't want people to pity me. Like, oh, things are great. And now that I'm kind of talking about my situation, like people were like, oh, yeah, you'll bounce back on your feet. It's been 7 months. I've been bouncing and bouncing and like I haven't gotten anywhere. Like I was saying, there's no solution to this current problem. What I will say though is like ever since I went on this, I guess, warpath or whatever you want to call it, of forcing myself to try to make at least 100 connections a week, I've started having a lot of side conversations with organizations, big companies that aren't necessarily advertising that the jobs are open right now, but they do have roles open right now. I'm reaching out directly to chief people officers, reaching out directly to senior directors, and I'm not saying, hey, you want to hire me, blah blah blah. I'm like, hey, look, I don't know what you guys have, if anything at all, but I'd like your organization, and I love what you guys stand for. I'd love to see where I could potentially fit into the equation if you have something open. A lot of people are like, we don't have anything, but then there are a few companies out there that are like, yeah, let's talk. It's 3 interviews set up this week with really reputable companies. It's just like kind of trying to take things in your own hands. But like we were talking about before, I guess the biggest reason why people don't want to talk about their financial issues or their personal issues, emotional issues, is because you don't want to seem weak.
I think through society to be that way.
I mean,
And
you
I think
look at certain people, even on LinkedIn, that are consistently day one of a layoff, day two of a layoff, day three. Honestly, when I see those day one, day two, day three things, it kind of annoys me. And not like I feel bad for this person. It kind of goes back into the back of my mind, like as a comparison, which I know I shouldn't do that. But yeah,
Right.
like, man, I've been sitting back for like 7 months. You're talking about day three and you're already like blah, blah, blah. There's people out there that have been unemployed for like 11 months now. I've had conversations with them. They'll reach out to me not knowing that I don't work for our prior employer anymore. And I'm like, hey, I feel for you. I myself am looking for another opportunity. And that's the other thing. I'm responding to everybody that's reaching out to me. I can help you with maybe potentially lining you up with recruiting firms or whatever, but I was like, I don't have anything for you right now. There was a quote that really hit me that I saw. There's 2 days in a year that you have zero control over, yesterday and tomorrow. So focus on today. And what are you doing today that is going to set you up for tomorrow? Every single day, man. Like I sit myself down, try to get at least 10 to 15 connections. If somebody responds back, I know that I got that connection back. I'm going to try to hit somebody else. I'm trying to maximize my outreach. At the same time, like you said, people are willing to help.
A couple of things that you said, and I'm just looking at it from a different standpoint. I understand the embarrassment. One of the things that I've told someone recently is for my career, especially in the last, I would say 12 years, maybe 14 years. This is my 5th layoff. In my mind, part of that is, okay, I know I'm not doing something right. Maybe this is one of the reasons why I feel that it's necessary for me to, number one, stay focused on my values and also what is important to me. I want to go back though, when we're talking about the day one, day two, and you're saying I've been out for 7 months. Think about what it's like in those first couple of days.
No, I know. That's what I agree. It's
And I'm
panic. It's like,
panic.
what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Also, not knowing what's happening. You know what's happening with the market. Even people that are panicking inside their own jobs that aren't responding to you. It's not that they're not responding to you because of you. They don't even know what's happening with their own roles.
absolutely, self-preservation.
Yeah.
Let's just say, for instance, in our world in the talent acquisition space, managers, leaders, I can't say this enough. Recruit for your own roles because you're freaking the rest of your team out by saying, hey, go find someone.
This plays in very heavily into how leaders aren't considering mental health at this time. It's not just one thing. It's not just a financial aspect. There's health, general health that's a concern. There's so many issues that are going on that a lot of leaders aren't thinking. And you can see how all of this is playing out society-wide with how people are responding to just day-to-day stuff. It feels less of an embarrassment to say it widely, like on LinkedIn, than to mention it and tell your people directly, like, this is what I'm going through and this is a hardship and all of that. So
I would say it's the other way around for me. Like I have to sit here and think 2, 3, 4 times before I post anything online because that's a single post could ruin your career.
And
Right.
I agree with you, AJ.
And it's a lot easier for me to talk to people that, I'm interfacing with on a day-to-day basis because like, here's the thing, they know you. Even if you make a mistake on a certain syllable, phrase, sentence, a topic, they're not going to judge you for the rest of your life on it. They might look at you like an idiot.
Right.
Fine.
That's the social media challenge where so many people are comfortable saying things and sharing things so outwardly. That's the reason I said it's easier for them. They aren't thinking about any ramifications behind it. They want the wider view of more people, because when you're talking to your group, it's so personal. It's less personal when you're like, it's out there and it's been broadcasted. It's less personal. They may not feel that there's as much embarrassment because they feel like there's so many other people in it.
I agree with where you're coming from on it. I feel in terms of how I view it and feel it. From that path, I can control that audience, right? That knows that I share with, that I become vulnerable with, or however you want to look at it. Once it's sprayed to the masses, I mean, you don't know what the intended targets are or where it landed or didn't land. The ones you wanted to hear or see, maybe didn't even look at that path. And again, like AJ's point as well, I feel like you have to be so careful of what you say or put out there because it can come by and bite you if for a job interview.
Look, people can be bitter as hell, man. They'll dig up stuff that you posted 10 years ago. You don't even have any recollection of it anymore. I mean, you see it happen all the time.
I agree with that. There's so many times that I want to comment to someone on a post. I can start typing it out and then I stop and say, I don't need to say that. My question is, why am I responding? Is it going to help? Does it add to the conversation? Or does it I believe it gives some people a lift of superiority. That's the only way that they can get it.
Everybody's in this process of wanting to be heard, wanting to be known, wanting people to follow what they believe in. It's the whole concept of being an influencer. The word itself is saying you have the ability to influence a lot of people.
When we talk about influencers, one of the things that started to build that was brands. People who are actors and actresses and politicians and etc. They have a following, which we've seen because people are following them for the work that they do. But then we have other influencers who share their thoughts or the get ready with me's or talking about makeup. When those people started to get more people, that's when brands started coming in. It goes back to the dollar. But all of that to come back to how is it affecting our mental health?
The envy of wanting someone with something that someone else has is wanting to be like them. And then you don't have either the capability or the opportunity to do that causes a lot of mental stress and frustration in yourself. I think people have forgotten what it means to be an individual. What exactly is it that makes you happy? Is it living somebody else's life or living your life and trying to achieve the things that you're supposed to achieve? That sense of envy is what's actually, it kind of plagues people's minds.
When we're talking about envy, that's a lot of what has caused a lot of the issues. Going back to what you were saying more than several episodes ago, there was the VC money and, all these other things that were driving this, I want my company to be this. And it's not necessarily about the company. It does go to the individual. We don't have to drop any well-known CEO names, but there are plenty of them that they're envious, and then they want to elicit envy from other people. They want to be that shining star. Some people are very smart, but how do you find your place? Meaning, if you're smart, do you want to be smart and show it to people? Do you want to talk about being smart, or do you want to do something that's smart?
You spend 8 to 10 hours a day at work. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Or are you just saying you're enjoying what you're doing? You're right. That level of envy that a lot of people have, and some of these CEOs and all these other companies that are having debt-based growth, growing because of the level of debt that you have, and then being able to use that to go get more loans and capital and throwing up your evaluation. Go back to the roots of who you are and what your company is supposed to be and start pushing towards that.
Are we okay with who we are? Going back to what I was saying at the top of me holding things back and needing a hype person and being open to share with my friends where I am, those are the people that know me. It's really important to recognize that when we're looking at our hype people, how we share where we are with our friends, with our family, those that are closest to us. I know you mentioned this, AJ, talking about embarrassment, but my friends have seen me embarrassed in a lot of other situations besides being laid off. I fell off a step in a club once, and I had not had a drink. So they have seen me embarrassed so many other times that me being laid off it's not an embarrassment at all. If it were, it would be just one more embarrassment than Nicole has gone through. It's not my embarrassment because I think so many people have gone through it.
As you get older and you've been in those other spots and positions, and I think, it also ties back to when you talk about people being defined by their jobs. The more defined you are by your job, your title, your position, whatever, the more embarrassment it comes with when you're not in that position, like if you've been laid off. So it's harder for people who just, that is their sense of me, when they lose it, and it makes it harder to talk about it or be vulnerable around that space, because from what they portrayed is that's where I'm strong, that's me. And then when I'm not in that space, people just they lose that sense of self, and it's hard to become vulnerable to talk about that. And I do think with age and experience that becomes easier, but you still see a lot of older adults act that way. I have to be this staunch type of person or whatever type of person in work and around everybody I work with. There's some people that feels like they can't form personal relationships with people they work with.
Well, you see it on LinkedIn all the time. The people at work aren't your friends. Why not? If that's the case, then you're in the wrong damn job, man. Like, find something else.
Yeah.
Or that's your family. That's
I don't believe in that. But
No.
like, yeah, I don't think anybody you work with is a family member, because you can't, no matter how hard you try, your family is always going to be a family. This is what I'm envious of: toddlers. This is why. Those little gremlins run around, man, and say and do whatever they want to do, and there is no shame. And all you can do is just sit back and smile and be like, man, what if I did that?
You should. They aren't worried about nothing. They really aren't trying to compare. They just want to exist and have fun and
enjoy life.
Yeah.
Enjoy the moment.
Yeah. So be like a toddler. Ron, you mentioned, how do you define success? Most of the time it's defined, so many people will define it according to what society, what the community says success is. It's rare to find someone who says success for me is 8 hours of sleep a night, or being able to play with my toddlers. So many people, because we live in the society that we do, it's tied to title or salary. I know inflation and the cost of living and all of the above, but looking at the happiness study, 75,000 is that as you make more, that's when that happiness level goes down. You look at people who don't have a lot, but man, that joy that they have is amazing. It's infectious if people will pay attention to it. It's not always about the money, but we've been taught that it's always about the money.
And it dives even further with throwing in stuff in there, right? Stuff is where the challenge comes in, right? And like you're talking about a certain level of earnings, people are paying their bills. As they get above that they acquire more stuff, more debt, more things that they have to continue to work harder for, that they can no longer enjoy those things or that level that they were at, whether it be that 75 mark or what have you. So stuff is our beast of burden.
George Carlin's bit about stuff, is so brilliant how he talks about stuff. I'm going to include it in the episode's notes. I would not even try to mimic how he talked about it, but it resonates with exactly what you're saying, Ron, about the stuff. Salary is one thing, but then the acquisition of stuff, it's mind-blowing, because then you have to be concerned about your stuff. What's going to happen to your stuff?
One stuff begets another stuff, right? You get this one, and I mean, it's real, right? When people see packages coming in on a daily, it creates that euphoria, and that it fulfills a need that's unexplainable. Once it's done, got it yesterday, that's gone. Where's the next one? It's slowing down though. I mean, consumers are buying less, which is what this is all supposed to happen in drive. So people are gonna have to figure out, where do I get that euphoric high I was getting? What else can I do?
There's a channel on YouTube that I started watching. It's called the Bulldog Mindset. And this is a guy that he had a crazy career in technology. He was working for these Fortune 500 companies, and he always knew something was missing. And he started asking himself, what exactly can I accomplish? And he started pulling back to the root cause of a lot of this. What he came to was basically going into this thought process of, is like, we're moving away from being human and being more mechanical. So he just started doing things simply, like, all right, like, I want to run a mile today. And when he got to his limit, he's like, I know I can keep going. I know I can keep going. And then he kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing until he started running 6 to 7 miles a day, like it was nothing for him. And he's never chasing money. He's just chasing to see what can he do. And out of that, he became successful. He started speaking in front of a large audience of people. That was one of his biggest fears back in the day. Or, how do I go talk to a very attractive woman without the fear of rejection? He teaches people these small basic skills that we should have gotten when we were growing up. I started really understanding what he started talking about, the process of being less human and more mechanical. Because again, it's just another thing that we have to do, another thing that we want. It's like we're not even pushing for happiness. The guy doesn't work anymore. He feels like he wants to go out and talk to people about there's a better way of actually finding peace within yourself, which just people don't have anymore.
We talked a little bit about that with Amy in our last episode, and I remember she was talking about getting from the chaos to boredom to peace. It's not that people like chaos, but some people are very comfortable in the chaos because they feel like they feel alive. But so many people have never even experienced what peace looks like, what it feels like. And granted, it can look and feel different for most people. It really is interesting how, even in the space of boredom, the mind that's constantly going, like, I should. And we talked about that as well. A lot of that success, the money, the stuff, it's about the shoulds. I should have this. I should. And
Deserve.
The entitlement, of course. I remember growing up and here, the grass is not always greener. And then as I got older, thankful for experience and age, you start recognizing, if the grass is greener at your neighbor's yard, their water bill is really high, or they may have artificial grass. Yes. We only see so much instead of looking at the wide range of what's there and what's available to us. And again, why I always say, you have to have your people. And if you don't know who your people are, it's time to find some people.
Think about all these people that are out there saying, you got to do this, and this is who I am, and this is what I've accomplished. You don't know what's real and what's not. You could have influencers saying, oh, look at all the money I've got and this and that, but do they really? How do you know that? And like you said, with the grass is greener on the other side. Like, you don't know what your neighbor has to go through to keep that yard green. Their water bill might be twice as what they can afford, but they still do it just to keep up.
It goes back to knowing who you are. I really want to title this episode, Who are your hype people? Because that's what is missing to keep us grounded. That's who helps ground me. Ron, you mentioned as a girl dad, your girls probably keep you on point all the time.
Well, they ground you and they lift you up off the ground too, right? So
Yeah.
it
Ooh.
works both ways. I get more from reflection of seeing when I try to teach them, seeing how they get it or pick it up, and then looking back and say, am I living that? Right? Am I
Mm-hmm.
showing what I'm teaching and preaching? And they often remind me that I'm not. And then I have to course correct.
I look at you as being a pretty grounded person. You don't seem like you are trying to attain so much. I mean, you brought up the stuff. So that lets me know that you probably you've managed your approach to that. Do you think it has something to do with not living in a major metro area?
I mean, until just the last year and a half, 2 years, that's where I've lived is those areas. And I still, for me, it's still a mindset. I mean, I think it's looking back at what really makes you happy, and you can get caught up in just the go and the do and the stuff and buy it and making just to live, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get away from that. I actually wanted to enjoy whatever it is you make or do, and I was missing my kids growing. And I just would look and there they would be. I hear them say things. I'm like, when did you mature to that level? I think that definitely when you can step away from that and see that, it helps a ton. I mean, I want everybody here to have everything that they want, need, not necessarily want, but everything they need and can be happy. To me, the biggest part is can we actually enjoy each other and still be happy? I know happiness is different for everybody. Stuff is happiness for a lot of people, but that's such a fleeting happiness. I mean, I'm looking for a more long-term happiness, right? Something you can look forward to every day, not a package showing up. It's enjoying the fruits of your labor, but that's the piece, not just having the fruits of the labor and enjoying whatever that is.
I don't think people give themselves the opportunity to work for that sense of accomplishment anymore. And I'm not saying this about everybody, but it's like you said, those quick dopamine hits. I want to hear it right now. Oh, let me get on Amazon and order it and it'll be at my doorstep tomorrow or in 2 hours. Even the thing of like what we used to do in the past, like go inside the store and look at the thing, talk to somebody about what this thing really is and do I really want it? Like that doesn't happen anymore. It's just like it comes into your mind, boom. I've been up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, just randomly order something, and then I wake up the next day, go, what the hell did I order? And then it shows up. Yeah, that's happened to me. And I'm like, man, I really don't want this thing, and I'll take it back. The process of getting something is far easier than taking it back now. Because then you got to like pack the thing up, take it to a UPS store, take it back to wherever. It becomes a pain when you know you can just pick it up. Well, it's even like that for food now. DoorDash, Instacart, Grubhub. I mean, Nicole, you're going, nah, I know you don't do those things, but like,
Yeah.
that's what it is now. It's the sense of accomplishment's not there and just I want and I deserve. That's what a lot of people have started transitioning to. Same thing with work. Let me just do the bare minimum and I'll get far. And I don't mean it in a negative sense. Things have become far easier for people, but then that's also caused this. I really don't need to work as hard as I need to get what I really want in life. And you stop asking yourself those tough questions, and like you said, Ron, you start missing out on the things that are really important for you.
You forget what those are. I mean,
Yeah.
through this process, I have, it goes back to what you're talking about, right? Things have become easier. There's always a service, a product, a tool, something there to where we completely lose. And I've realized this through this downtime. You lose your creativity. You lose your ability to create, or at least the awareness that you can create. There's a problem. You can go look somewhere. There's a tool. You can use it. There's an app. There's software, whatever. Since we've been off, I mean, I've been doing a lot of DIY side projects, building furnitures, doing things, right? And I've learned to improvise way more. I forgot I am creative. I can create and build, and I get a huge sense of fulfillment and happiness out of building and creating. And there's not a solution there coming up with that solution. I look at things completely different when we were in the workforce and things are like they were. Here's a problem. I know there's a solution. I just go find the right app or the right person and get it done and move on. I didn't create anything. And I know you don't have to recreate the wheel for everything, but to be able to do that and often it's something better that I come up with. That's been huge. And again, I lost that piece of myself and forgot about that piece. And it was always there as a kid, but it's been gone just being in the corporate world for a long time. And now it's the engineer piece. It's come back and I just love it.
No, I mean it's one of the biggest complaints with AI.
Yeah.
People are deliberately using these things, not necessarily to make their life easier, just so they don't have to do it. And you're enabling that.
That's been my argument all along about AI.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are some benefits to AI. I agree. Like I like it, but I don't let it control my thought. I don't let it control how I write. You get on LinkedIn, you get on any of these social media things, you get on some of these vlogs, blogs, and you can clearly tell what's been written by AI and what hasn't been, especially if you know the person. Now, I agree that there is a place for AI, like doing extremely fast calculations, double checking your work to make sure it's correct. But like, it's again that like that weird sense of I don't need to do as much to get what I want, right? That's not the case.
Yeah. And we lose that ability does disappear until you're forced to rediscover. In America as a whole, right? I mean, we just are all about somebody else do it for me. Let me just buy it. We're consumers, which obviously has caused us to fall behind.
That goes back to, well, who are you? It goes back to what you were saying, Ron. Where's the creativity? Where's the opportunity to build, to grow something from the ground up? And I would even add this to the mix is in being in service to others. That's a huge one for me because I've learned that when I'm in service, I learn more about myself. And that's the whole thing about service. I'm going to continue to tie this back to mental health because that's part of what we're seeing a huge challenge. We know that people are laid off. We know people are finding it challenging to find new roles and to fill that gap. We know savings accounts are being depleted. We know this. But we can also say, and this is sometimes what we don't look at, is that I may be in this position, but there are others that are having a harder time than me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, here's the thing, kind of like the job search process in itself. If I just kept listening to what everybody else was saying, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. I tried that. If I wasn't able to innovate on how my responses were, how I was reaching out and doing all these things, I wouldn't have even got the responses that I did for this week. I kept telling myself, I'm doing all the right things. Why am I not getting anything? Why am I not even getting a callback or a response or any of that? It's because I wasn't being true to myself. I was kind of trying to follow what other people were doing. You know what? This doesn't set me apart. It doesn't showcase what I'm capable of doing.
And that's the thing when you're doing the right thing and it becomes a million people doing the right thing, then it's just a thing at that point, right? There is nothing that sets you apart or makes you somebody break into your profile versus somebody else's. I think that's a huge piece of it.
We even talked about that, how if everybody's reaching out to network and reach out to someone, you have to realize that you're not the only person reaching out to that person. The other thing is managing our expectation, that entitlement and what we feel like, well, I've done this. Yeah, you may be great, but there are other people that are great too. So my question to you, AJ, with this shift, how has it affected your mental health?
I'm happy because again, I'm starting to use my brain again. I feel like I'm accomplishing something every single day, one conversation at a time, one connection at a time. I got another rejection earlier this morning for a role that I applied to 3 months ago, but I'm not looking at it going, oh, screw you. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be there. But I feel like I'm accomplishing something, even though like it's not really hitting my bottom line or hitting my wallet. It's that 1% rule. Do better 1% each day. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And eventually you're going to get to the goal you want to get to.
And when you solve a problem or you come up with a solution or a better way of doing something, there's your euphoria fix that you were getting from your Amazon package or whatever. And it's also an awakening. It does make you realize and think, or it has me, that I'm solving problems. I'm one step closer to solving the next, whatever the overall problem is, whether it's creating another company or getting another job. As long as you're making progress, you feel like I'm going to get closer to this because now I'm starting to solve my own problems and doing things along that path. There's going to be something that's fruitful from that. You have to get into a problem solving mode. That's not just doing what somebody told you to do or how to do.
I think that's part of what I forgot. I forgot that one of my biggest strengths is the critical thinking ability, being able to think in the moment, come up with solutions and doing things. So again, that quote that I talked about earlier, there's 2 days in a year you can't control, yesterday and tomorrow. but you can control what you're doing right now, right? Like, man, that hit me so hard when I was reading this book and I saw it and I was like, damn, it's not wrong.
No.
And so I got up the next day and started thinking, what can I do differently? Not because of what somebody else is telling me to do or whatever. So I took a different route. There are still tech companies hiring. There are still large Fortune 500 companies that are still hiring. But like you said, they're not advertising it because they don't want to get bombarded with more work. There's people out there trying to help by consolidating all these jobs and putting them down this list and saying, oh, these are the jobs that are open right now. It's like, that's not really helping. It's just causing more noise. You're doing the same thing that an AI would. Hey guys, you don't really have to go search for it. Boom, here they are.
But to a certain extent, it's not to the person who is doing it, they feel like they want to help. They may not be able to do anything else. It can be helpful. And it will definitely be helpful if someone sees something on that list and they're hired from it.
But it's also causing a lot of noise for the organizations.
So AJ, I think you're going to suggest people watch the Bulldog Mindset on YouTube. Is there anything else that you recommend people do to help manage and help support their mental health as they're going through the job searches? Any other tools that you would recommend?
Books.
Any specific book recommendation you want to share?
There's one book in particular that really helped me in the past. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. It kind of tells you that there's a buttload of problems on this planet. Another one is an autobiography of a yogi. It's a really good book. Sapiens and Homo Deus or Deus. It kind of tells you what humanity and what our perspective on certain things was way back in the day when, we were still cavemen, and kind of where we are at right now, right? Oh, Dare to Lead by Simon Sinek. He puts a very philosophical approach to leadership, how you kind of conduct yourself in a day-to-day, even if you're not a leader. Another good one is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
My recommendation is, and I'm going to take it again, The Science of Wellbeing. It's a free course offered through Yale University. You can access the course through Coursera. It's one of those courses that when you need to connect to self and understand gratitude and happiness, that would be one of the best courses out there. The other suggestion in just understanding why we feel so disconnected, why we feel embarrassed by being laid off or having financial problems or having mental health issues. It's Brene Brown's TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. And just watch Brene Brown's her documentary on Netflix. It's uplifting, but when we need to understand shame and vulnerability, it's something that often masks a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and we internalize it. What about you, Ron? What would you recommend?
So I'm coming at it from a different space, and we've already talked about a piece of this that I think is really important. You talk about having that hype team, hype people, whatever that is. I think that's an integral part of keeping you aligned, keeping you from getting yourself down. Someone that helped, and I don't think it's someone, I think it's multiple people. You can't put all that on one person, right? You need different perspectives that help pick you up and put you in that space and remind you that you are capable and able and good at whatever that needs to be. So I think that's a big key. I also feel, and I've been coming at this from a different direction for myself, is not just sitting and looking at where I came from, what I've been doing all this time. I'm looking at other avenues. I'm looking, what else can I be and do and take the things that I've learned in my past lives and apply other businesses, companies, other identities in terms of what I am or do or be. And I think you can do that through, I think a tool for helping with that is, well, besides, look at your interests, look at the things you want to learn how to do or be. How can I? And I think you eventually figure out how to monetize that. YouTube. I mean, I think YouTube is a huge tool. And I'm not saying look at it from an entertainment standpoint. I'm looking at it from a learning standpoint, right? Use that to help learn and grow because that's such a huge mental satisfaction is to learn something and in turn do it, right? Create something, be something, be able to do something you couldn't before. You always told yourself, oh, I'd like to be able to do that, whether it's play guitar or what have you, and then actually finally doing it. You have more time now, so
Yeah.
make it useful. Learn.
Yeah.
I think those are huge mental boosts.
Pull away.
While we had several takeaways from this episode, the one I want to leave you with is know your tribe. Who is your hype person? Or better yet, who are your hype people? We hope you enjoyed this episode, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Tip That Scale. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Until next time.